Did she do herself favors here, or is it your legal opinion that perhaps disqualification is more likely as a result of her testimony?
Well, it was theatrical, for sure. But I think the judge asked a question at about 11 o'clock this morning, which was, what does the amount of money that Nathan Wade earned have anything to do with this allegations of yours? And I think it's not been a great day for the proponents of the disqualification. I think that they really haven't established any financial impropriety. They may have, some doubt established as to when the exact time of the relationship's beginning was and when it ended. But I think that in the end, there's not going to be a sufficient basis for them to disqualify Willis or Wade, or more importantly, dismiss the case. Now, that all said, if I were Nathan Wade, I'd say, thank you very much. I'm glad I wasn't disqualified. But you know what? In the interests of calming the seas and letting this case go forward without political interference, I'm going to step aside.
We heard a lot today, Michael, about vacations, about a lot of cash transactions. We heard about her preferred brand of vodka, spending time on cruise ships. We also saw a very combative Fani Willis. Did she comport herself with the credibility of a district attorney?
Well, you know what? She's under attack as if she is on trial. And she said clearly, I am not on trial. And so if you're in her position and you are being accused essentially of criminal wrongdoing, money laundering with cash and taking cruises with independent contractors / employees, then I think she has a right to be upset about that. Nathan Wade was much calmer in his demeanor, but people react differently to being accused. And, I think that it was okay for her to show the emotion that she showed.
Well, and of course, we're ending the day discussing this legal case the former president is facing. Yet we started the day talking about another in New York, the Alvin Bragg case. That trial has now been set for March 25th. It's going to begin just weeks from now. Quite historic. And of course, we heard from the former president himself on that matter earlier today. Just take a listen.
This is just a way of hurting me in the election because I'm leading by a lot. We're leading by numbers that nobody's ever seen before. We want delays. Obviously, I'm running for election. How can you run for election if you're sitting in a courthouse in Manhattan all day long?
It seems, Michael, that he's going to have to try to do just that as this trial plays out. The judge says he expects it to last about 6 weeks. That means by May, we could be considering a presidential candidate that could be a convicted felon. How likely do you think it is, based on the merits of this case, that he becomes one?
It's a difficult case and a simple case. The simple case is when you ask a jury, why would somebody spend money in the way that they spent it and record it on the books in the way that they recorded it if they didn't have anything to hide? When, if you will, they could have made the direct payment overtly. The reason they did it circuitously was because they didn't want the overt payment to be known in the run-up to the election. So that's the theory of why it went this way. Then you've got a lot of documents that set out how the monies were paid and how the monies were recorded on the books. You've got Michael Cohen. Sure, he's a fractured witness, but he's going to be talking about the documents. You've got David Pecker from National Enquirer, who will support Cohen's testimony. And then there's the wild card of whether or not Weisselberg, the CFO, will take the stand. He's, according to the New York Times at least, in conversation with the prosecutors because they may be charging him with perjury in the New York fraud civil case. So there's a lot of stuff here that I think favors the possibility of a conviction.
We frequently come to you for perspective, Michael Zeldin. Considering what we have here, I know it's something we were waiting for and expected, but the headline is remarkable and historic: the first criminal trial of a former United States president. What is this going to look like? What is it going to feel like?
Well, it's going to make the O.J. Simpson trial look like a regular day-to-day traffic court case. The amount of media circus-like attention it'll get is going to be beyond description. Trump will, in the hallways of the courtroom, argue that he's being persecuted. Of course, this case has nothing to do with him being persecuted or him being a political candidate. The events that gave rise to it predate his time as former president, about to be candidate president. But we'll get the hallway political stuff. We won't see what's going on in the courtroom, which will be a relief to everybody in the courtroom. And we'll just have to really wait for the jury to decide how this goes. Our reporters will let us know what the sort of temperature looked like in the courtroom. But I expect it will be a criminal trial that is unparalleled in U.S. history.
So that's one of the criminal trials. Others could potentially quickly follow, specifically the one, Michael, here in Washington brought by Jack Smith. A lot of that will depend, though, on how quickly we have a decision on the immunity question, whether or not the Supreme Court does, as Jack Smith, the special prosecutor, has asked, quickly decide not to stay Trump's trial, which was originally scheduled for March 4th. How quickly, now that Jack Smith's response is in hand, do you expect the Supreme Court will make a decision on this, and what do you expect it will be?
It should make a decision. They meet in conference on today, the 16th, and they will make a decision about whether they want to hear this case on the merits, whether they will hear it expeditiously or in the ordinary calendar, and whether they'll let the stay stand. They need more or less 4 votes to accept the case and to reject the request for a stay, 5 in order to make it move expeditiously. But I think the fair outcome in this case is that he go to trial before the election. I think the American people, to parrot the words of Richard Nixon, have the right to know whether their president is a crook. They have a right to know whether Donald Trump engaged in provable criminal conduct. And so I would hope that the way the Supreme Court would deal with this is, 1, make sure that Trump is on the ballot in Colorado and every other state that he's eligible to be on, that he meets the qualifications for. And then 2, set this down, let the trial court set this down for trial probably in June, so that we get an outcome in enough time for the voters to decide whether a conviction or an acquittal impacts the way they will vote.